All right. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. Stoked to be presenting here at the first CannaDataCon presented by Delta Emerald Ventures. So excited to dive in. While my topic for discussion today isn't technical, I think it's possibly the most important discussion today because it has to do with people, right? Managing and motivating remote teams. So as with any organization, people are the most important asset. We heard Ryan from Schoenfeld talk about that, and Ian talk about that quite a bit during the keynote, but it takes a lot of effort and time to ensure people have what they need to be successful, especially in a remote environment. So today my goal is to walk you through how Blaze handles that, how we manage and motivate people in a remote environment. And my hope is that you guys can walk away, get inspired, and take some ideas back to your organization, but with your own twist on it. Because at the end of the day, it's about being creative and being personable. So with that said, we got 20 minutes. Let's get rocking. Cool. So quick background on me. As I mentioned, my name is Chris, co-founder and CEO of Blaze. Throughout my life and my career, frankly, I've been involved in some very competitive and highly functioning teams, both remote and in person. But especially from playing soccer at the collegiate level and youth level at some of the highest levels in the world, to scaling the behemoth that is Amazon Web Services. I've seen a lot go down in both successful teams and also non-successful teams. So I'm hoping to kind of get through what makes a team successful, especially in a remote environment. But beyond that, I also happen to be a cannabis professional as well. I ran a dispensary back in 2011 through 2014. So I also understand that we've got our own challenges within this space. But all that being said, one common thread is that across all my experiences, there's been a lot of complex projects I've had to work on. And I think cannabis is no different. There's a lot of complexity here, and especially projects that require multiple teams and departments. It gets even more convoluted and a little bit more sophisticated. So we're going to try and dive through this. But first, kind of want to give you a quick background on Blaze. Nothing for those that don't know. We are a cannabis point of sale provider, supports roughly about 16% of the. But we have solutions ranging from the point of sale to payments to business intelligence solutions, all the way down to e-commerce as of last month through acquisition of Timber, which we're really excited about. So we cover about 18 states and 8 provinces, and just a little background on what we do. But when it comes to our teams, we've been remote since day one at Blaze, partially because we couldn't afford an office at the very start of our journey. But since 2017 and to where we stand today, we've learned a lot. It's not been perfect, but we've continued to iterate on it. And I think that's really the idea behind this, the scale here at Blaze. We have offices in 3 countries with about 150 personnel. That's 50 full-time employees and contractors working on Blaze daily. So I'm fortunate to be out of our headquarters office in Orange County. We get about, 6 to 10 people in the office during the week. They come in about once, twice a week. We also have offices in Vancouver, British Columbia, and then Lisbon, Portugal as well. So as you can see from this map, we span about 14 states in the US, 6 provinces in Canada, 1 region in Peru, and 1 district in Portugal. And to give you perspective, we support about 4 different time zones. So if you guys are on Slack, you guys know you can pause your notifications and do all those things, but it's a lot to manage the time zones for sure. But with the broad distribution of these teams, we've learned really how to kind of manage these teams effectively while also giving them autonomy and sense of team, which really drives that community feel and tries to make it feel like a really cohesive team across the board. All right, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on this slide because I think it all starts with communication. That's the basis of a remote team, is to make sure that we're constantly communicating. So, first and foremost, I'm sure many of you guys have seen the 3 C's of communication before, but if you haven't, now's a great time to get familiar with them. I first learned about them when I was playing soccer at Cal Poly, and the whole idea there was keep communication constant, concise, and keep it clear so that if someone's going up for a header, someone's setting up for a free kick, like you can make take that same kind of approach when it comes to business. We need to be flexible, we need to be agile, but you need the information. It may not be perfect information, but you need information to be able to move. So beyond how, or let me backtrack here. Like I said, while we aren't really defending necessarily a free kick during our work at Blaze, we're constantly battling the day-to-day battle, both internally with the workload we've got, as well as externally with our customers and partners. So, be really mindful of what you communicate to those folks and how. And as you can see, it sounds really basic on that 3 Cs. But the reality is I get pinged nonstop, like 200-300 times a day on Slack, plus email, plus phone calls, plus text. So we want to keep that thing as concise as possible, so we don't have to read a paragraph everywhere we go. I love reading, but it's just not feasible. And the whole thing about these things is it's all about repetition. It's practice. It's like going to the gym. You got to keep pushing and you'll get better at it over time. No one hits it out of the park on the first go by any means. Concise, the shorter the better. Just get straight to the point. Don't put what you're trying to convey at the end of the message, like put that up front so people know what you're trying to get at. That really helps with being concise and then clear. Like especially at my level and the executive level, not everyone has the full context that we do. And so being able to give the appropriate context the right time really leads to a better, clear message. And again, you're really asking someone to do something with a message, whether it be listen or take an action, give them that context. But you need to attack these intentionally. And I think that's really important. But beyond how you communicate, where you communicate is also really, really important. And so the 3 vectors is something I kind of came up with and coined, but I've seen this across really high functional teams, and we've definitely made some tweaks on this over time, but I think it's really important. But I want to take a minute and really call out, obviously, I think the personalized vector is really straightforward. You're going to have one-on-one with your person you're managing or whoever. That's really straightforward, nothing there. But my ask is take notes. My biggest gripe is when you meet with someone and they don't remember things, and it's in a really professional setting, you should know what's going on. So take detailed notes on that, but that's really straightforward. I think the next one, 2 and 3, the department-wide communication vector, as well as company-wide, is really, really important. At Blaze, we really focus on having a flat organization. I want to make sure everyone feels like they have the autonomy to move around. But part of this is being open, being transparent, sharing the information. Of course, we have to get work done and we can't be chatting all day at random. And so that's where these OKRs come into place. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of objective and key results. We do them on a quarterly basis. So this chatting, these department-wide meetings, whether it be huddles or breakout sessions, need to be driving towards a common goal. And that should be all focused on the OKRs. They should all meet back at that point at the end of the day. So by creating these OKRs, especially on a quarterly basis, the entire department should be extremely clear where they're going, why they're going, and what the motive is. But the next one, the company-wide one, is extremely close to my heart because of being an individual contributor at some of those large organizations I shared. It just felt like I was in the dark all the time. And so one thing I wanted to do was make sure that our team at Blaze knows what's going on. Has the mission changed? Why did it change? And so the way I handled that is through a number of things. Leadership office hours. I'm sure you guys were on college and you had professional office hours. This is no different. All the leaders at my company, especially all the executives and managers, they all have weekly office hours. It's an hour, 45 minutes, a week. Set it aside, and I really encourage people to come in and talk to us. Like we sometimes don't even talk about work. We just talk about either going to the gym or family or life. But it really helps build that sense of community and the fact that we are a person and not someone on Slack and my name just happens to be Chris. It's no, we're here. We want to interact, and so I found these things to be incredibly awesome. And the people that show up, just like in college, get the most out of these things. They can ask pointed questions, and it really helps me get a pulse on what are people thinking about in the organization. I want my QA team to come up and ask me questions. I want my sales team. I want my marketing team. And so engaging them is really important. I found this to be a really effective way to do it. What else? And so once I have these conversations in office hours, it actually allows me to bring them up and address them at the whole company, because I think that's also really important. And so one thing that I take really seriously is our town halls. We do these every month. We do not miss a month. They're very, very important to us. We've got a good structure to it, but it's a big production for our company. Like we, as a management team, we prep and we practice before every town hall. I will say we even have our own song that opens the town hall up that our teammates wrote. And so every year we ask for a new song, and we've got DJs, we've got music producers, they put stuff together, but we open up the first 2 minutes while letting people in the waiting room just playing that. And super fun way to do it. You don't have to create music, but just being able to coin something your own and really set it up that, hey, this is something to look forward to is really, really, really important to me. So those are the 3 C's and V's of communication that I follow and I found to be really helpful. Next. Thank you, Tristan. I appreciate that. All right. So another big talk track, just to change gears a little bit when we talk about teams, is obviously talent and people, right? Talent's really, really important. but how do you find the right talent? And I don't think there's a magic or silver bullet for this, but within each organization, you guys are going to come up with your really important topics of what the identity of someone should really bring to the team. And so obviously take those into consideration. But with Blaze, I really focus on finding people, not just with the best background, that's really important, or I'd say not the background, but the experience, and really looking at leadership and characteristic traits. We've got leadership principles at Blaze that I really love. And my favorite one, frankly, is ownership. That's one of our key leadership principles. So I want to see that. And I want to see examples during the interview process and from anyone that's going to be joining the team. Show me a time where you had ownership all the way through. And so that's really important. But I get asked this a lot from both recruiters, investors, other leaders, like, what's the right person to fix X role or fit a certain role? Like, what are you looking for? And as you guys can probably expect, it depends. It really does. Let's talk product, for example, because I was kind of bringing up some questions earlier. Given the crazy amount of layoffs we've seen in the tech space, whether it be from Airbnb, Google, Amazon, there's some amazing product managers out there that have reached out to me. It's like their background is flawless. It's really amazing. They've executed on some really good stuff, but what does that really solve for me as someone working in the cannabis industry? Is that going to help me? Yes, process. Yes, you can write functional requirement documents. Yes, you can write use cases and user flows and all these great things that engineers really need to do their job. But for that particular question around a product manager, it's all about cannabis experience for me. At the end of the day, hands down, if you look at the entire organization at Blaze, like anyone that's touching the product and changing the direction or velocity of the product is a former operator, including myself, including our product teams as well. And so, you got to choose what you weight, but in that particular case, I would strive for cannabis experience because they're familiar with the domain space. We don't have to relearn that. We can hit the ground running. We can quickly solve small little pieces that at the end of the day may be small from us, but go a long way for our users, right? In terms of providing value. It's just hard to teach the cannabis specific stuff. I mean, as a former operator, I can tell you it's difficult. So as you go forward, just keep in mind, in the position that you're hiring for, if the role does need industry context, lean into that. It's okay. You can teach user flows. You can teach requirement documents. That's something you can totally do, but it's really hard to explain, to someone outside the cannabis industry, what it looks like to have a line around the corner with orders coming in, people yelling at you. It's just really difficult to be able to replicate that. Right education, right experience. These are all questions you need to think about. Are they customer facing? Where are they located? Does the region matter? These are all things to take into consideration. Next. All right. The other thing we'll like to touch on is acquisitions and mergers. I mean, we've seen a lot of this in this space. Just to give you guys a sense, we've gone through 2 acquisitions in the last 12 months at Blaze. We've had a lot of new teammates come in, and structure is incredibly important. So I'll walk you through how I was able to kind of manage these transitions, but not sure how many people here have been through them, but it's a scary time for a lot of people. And so I kind of put these, I know it's a lot of text, but 4 major buckets to pay attention to, both before, during, and after the acquisition. So timing's everything. Look, these are very secretive things that you want to get through. So when I'm looking at an acquisition, there's really maybe 4 people that know about it, including our board. Like, we try to keep things extremely tight because I need the team executing, not being distracted on this piece. So that's really important. Now, we definitely want to cue them in at certain stages of that acquisition. Like, once the LOI signed, we're in a pretty good state. But again, I'm not telling the entire team what's going on just yet, just the key leaders of that. Beyond that, making sure that leadership is aligned with the vision. So once we get the LOI signed, like, we're going into serious breakout sessions and really game theorying both the roadmap, the current state of the business. These are all really important things and ultimately lead to how we communicate back to our teams. But once the deal is closed, let's call it within a week of closing, that's when we want to open it up to the team. That's when I feel comfortable saying, hey guys, we're right there on the finish line. It's up to the lawyers now to just finish the last T's and C's, if you will. But I always hold a town hall once we get to that point, and it is wide open for everyone. So we talk about what is happening, why it's happening. Does it change the vision and the mission, as I spoke to earlier? Does it affect current employees and the employees of the companies being acquired? Like, these are things that they are people. We got to make sure they understand why we're doing this. And lastly, kind of what's the roadmap for the acquisition? Pretty straightforward. Once the merger's complete, then the real work really begins, is the post-merger integration process. And so make sure you got a clear PMI plan or post-merger integration plan. really important. And what I will say is rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to anything that's related to communication. So Slack, your CRM, email, we get that done the first week. It's got to be done the first week, or else you can't see what the team's doing. They can't get a sense of the culture that you're trying to instill with the broader organization. All right, cool. We're gonna have some fun this last little bit here. So motivating teams, probably my favorite thing to do. Now, I'm really passionate about this, but it's also tough when we're capital constrained. You know, we heard about this in the markets in the keynote earlier. What do? We have to make do with what we've got. So the way I've done that is through recognition, and not just from me giving recognition, but from the teammates. So we've got a progressive way of looking at recognition when it comes to teams. We call these tacos. Now you can call them whatever you want, but the idea here is that these are call outs from anyone in the company, including myself. And we'll get to some examples, or other teammates, of just saying, hey, you did a great job. You know, Ian, great presentation today, taco. And we add these things up at the end of the month, and we tally them up and see how many tacos people get. Well, it sounds kind of lame. It's actually really fun. Then we go a step further. A shout out is where we want to make sure someone's got a detailed journal entry of kind of why someone's being shout out. It's a bit more special than a taco. We try to look at these monthly, but they have to be specific in the detail on that and what's going on, and ideally lead them back to a leadership principle. And then we have the Crown Awards. Now, this is something that I love, and it's really fun. And so the Crown Awards are given out once per quarter per department, and it's completely optional. And so these are stuff that we want to create some scarcity here. We want to create some, once an award is given, it's got to mean something, and it's got to be a big deal. And so these are kind of the three vectors we looked at from motivating teams. But to give you a sense, like here's an example of some tacos. You know, Sarah is a BDR manager for our team, calling out her 2 BDRs, saying, really good job for stepping up. You guys are both so talented, and look how much effort you put in. And guys, I can't tell you, we go through there's probably 20 to 30 shout outs a day in tacos. Like, it is just popping, and it creates a real sense of culture, and it's really, really fun. So this is me calling out our HR rep, Steph. She's awesome. She actually might be on. Thank you, Steph. You're amazing. But she's one person tackling all the post-merger integration process. That's getting people set up in ADP, getting paychecks cut. Like, this is a lot of work to do. And so everyone else jumps on, so on and so forth. So kind of get into shout outs, because I know we're slow on time here, but shout outs a bit more detailed. We want to understand what leadership principle it's going to be aligned to, and then tell us exactly what's going on. And so again, these take more time, but at the end, we also give out gift cards at the end of the month, right, for shout outs. So $25 Amazon or whatever, in and out, it doesn't matter. These are just really help keep folks go, and they don't have to be leaders calling these folks out. They can be individuals. It does not matter. And then lastly, the Crown Awards, the crown jewel of them all. These are big deals. So they're optional. They don't have to go out, and you don't want to give one out because you feel like you give them out. So these are per department. And guys, it's something small. I mean, look, everyone loves trophies. You want something on your desk. But what's cool about this is, you know, they recognize it. They love these things. And so they repost, and it gives everyone something to strive towards. And at the end of the day, you know, it's hardware, it's awesome, but we really want to shout them out for doing a great job, abiding by leadership principles, and then supporting the rest of the teammates. So that's kind of how we progressively motivate people. And again, it doesn't have to be bonuses and all these other things. Yes, those are great. Everyone wants money, but I would say just as important as your peers calling you out for great work. That is one of the most important things. All right. So with that, any questions? Go for it.
Yeah. I have a question. What about, so you use different platforms like Slack, and you mentioned even maybe text message. I can speak that, like, we kind of use a lot of different things, and sometimes I worry, is it pulling people in too many directions? Yeah. Like if oh, you just sent me a text here, but you're also Slacking me at the same time. And so what do you, repeat the question, but like, if you could summarize it.
Yeah, the question is, you know, how do you handle different communication platforms, whether it be SMS, whether it be Slack or email? The reality is all communications between the company is done in Slack all day long. If you text me, I will respond to you in Slack. So I can't manage my phone that well. So it's got to be in Slack. And so we push everyone that way. Now, if you send me an email, it's a more formal response. I'll take my time to get back to you, but no text messages. At the end of the day, those are technically personal devices. And if you've got SOC 1, SOC 2, and other compliance regulations, you need to be able to control that communication. And so that is a factor. Yes, in the back.
What do you think about travel budgets and when are you getting the teams together and
Yeah.
differ on each team?
This is a tough one. Obviously, as a company, it's really tough to get everyone together. And so we encourage quarterly meetups at the department level. And so we have a lot of folks based in Denver, as an example, for sales. So right now, our sales team is trying to figure out how to, one, create a sales trip out of it. So then go around, knock on some doors, but two, also get together for be able to work together. One of the cool things that we actually use is Premier Workspaces. It's actually the folks that do our office space, which have a larger footprint than, what's the WeWork. And so thank you, Raj. And so for that, we can actually have drop-in offices pretty much anywhere around the country, and it doesn't cost us anything. And so to get the team there and have a place to work and even just go in for the day, if you're just need to get out of your house, like we can open that up in 2 seconds. But hopefully when we get bigger, we can do these bigger, team productions, because I love it. But right now, or company productions, but right now it's a team department focused one. Okay, go first.
So motivating teams with recognition, I love those examples. Building company culture with remote teams is an overall challenge, especially when factoring for new employee integration.
Yeah.
And so how do you manage building culture and new employee integration? And how has that changed from when you were 50 employees to now when you're 150?
Yeah. What is culture? I would ask you.
It's community within an organization.
Community is communication, right? And so communication, getting them called out early on for doing stuff like setting up your email, sending your first email, sending your first customer communication. That's taco. That's not a shout out, but it's enough to be like, hey, you're doing the right thing. Go. So when everyone sees that, they'll jump onto and start jumping on. Then what's really special is when that employee gets their first taco to someone else, that's when things really start to go and the flywheel really takes over. So as far as the question goes, like what's changed from 15 employees to where we're at now, a lot more thought into this, a lot more thought on how do we do these things. So just as you scale, you've got different problems, and similar to David on the technical debt, like get your product market fit, and then you really dive into what you need to solve to scale it out. And that's what we did here. Andrew?
So great presentation. Really awesome. A lot of good ideas. I'm interested. So with scaling so quickly, how do you deal with the other side of the world of the low performers? Like what are the tips and tricks with
non-engagement too?
And non-engagement, right? That's the quiet quitting.
Yeah, that's a serious topic. But at the end of the day, when we have this kind of environment, the team calls it out. I don't have to call it out, nor does the management team. It's actually very clear, because you want to give kudos to your teammates for doing work. So if no one's doing work, then everyone should have a taco at the end of the month. It's kind of how we look at it. And if like that gives us an early indication that something's dropping off. And so address it from there. So there's no magic bullet on that, but at the end of the day, if your teammates aren't calling you out, then I've got a problem. That's an issue. I'm not asking for something special. I'm asking you for just a kudos for doing a good job at one aspect of your role.
Do you think you lose anything in terms of like the after meeting conversations or the water cooler talk that sometimes like works through some issues that don't happen in the meeting?
Yeah. So the question for those that are listening is, do we lose anything because we don't have the water cooler talks, the breakouts after the meetings? The answer is absolutely yes. I hate to say that's just the reality of the remote teams. We also have teams broken out in Slack that we try to ping during meetings. Like I encourage people to be active in Slack during meetings, frankly, on specific topics, not just doing meetings. That's why I take notes during meetings. And so I want that to happen. But the reality is, yes, I don't have my teammates to go have a coffee with afterwards and really get into the meat of it. But that's also where these, team weekly meetings huddle around the OKRs. The objectives are really, really important, because frankly, if you got a question, it should align back to those OKRs. And if it's not, then okay, let's field it. But is it that important? So we try to use those as a way to counteract that. Yeah. Next.
Maybe kind of a silly question, but can you talk about how mechanically you do office hours in a remote environment?
Yeah.
I presume we don't have an office. Someone could just
Great question. We actually have a separate calendar in Google called Office Hours, and so that's owned by admins, super admins, and then we send out. I have mine Thursdays today actually, from 11 to 11:45 PST. So that's what I do every week, and so everyone else has their own breakouts, but they go in there and mark it as optional on the calendar. So it does show up on people's calendar and they can jump in or out if they want to.
I just hop on like a.
Yep.
meeting.
And sometimes I'll log in, I got no one, and I'm like, no one wants to talk to me. Like, it makes me feel kind of shitty, but that's okay. And sometimes I log in, I got 10 people queued up. And so it's just like any office hour, no questions are off limits. Like, let's just go and open it up.
Are those all in at the same time or are you one on
No.
one?
Everyone comes in.
Okay.
And half the time you'll see 2 or 3 drop off at the same time because they have the exact same question. So that's also really helpful.
Awesome. So Andrew asked about sort of like employees that may be struggling or
Yeah.
what have you. My question is about when leadership struggles or there are events that may cause employees' morale to drop, say
Happens.
a deal was lost or what have you. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you're not going to win everything. As competitive as I am, and many people know who I am in this audience, like I'm really competitive. So it hurts when you lose, but that's also why you have a team. That is your support system. And so they should be there for you, whether it's me that failed for whatever reason, and that does happen, or it's someone else. Like, you should be there for them and pick them up and drop them a taco for their effort, right? Call them out if they did something in special, even though things didn't land, in their way.
So you're celebrating failure.
Yeah, at the same time, it's the effort, right? It's the intent behind the scenes that I care about. Like, we're not going to win everything. I know that for a fact. So, yeah, the intent that matters, and you want to back that up. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thanks.